My number one takeaway from the entire Jussie Smollett saga is that there are two types of corruption in the world. Corruption by breaking the law and corruption by unequal application of the law. I'm not actually driving anywhere now, so nothing's gonna cause the camera to fall over, so... Oh my God! Where do you think you're going?
Karate.
I see. That would explain the outfit. Okay, we're here. Have fun at karate. Louder!
Oh gosh.
That's right, hands of steel.
No, you had a ring on.
That's right. That's actually...
San, shi, go, look, si, hatch, ku, ju.
High five! Ah! Hi there, I'm Viva Frei. You may remember me from such vlogs as...
All of them!
I am a Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. I do these things called vlogs, VLAWGS, where we break down and analyze something that's going on in the legal world in terms that can be understood by lawyers and non-lawyers alike. Jussie Smollett, the never-ending saga. For anyone who has been living under a rock, you know what? I'm not even summarizing what is going on in the Jussie Smollett situation. If you don't know, just Google it. But I'll summarize it in one line.
Jussie Smollett claimed to be the victim of a homophobic and racist hate crime perpetrated by two white men wearing MAGA hats who shouted, "Make America Great Again, this is Trump country," something along those lines. Chicago Police Department spent 2 weeks investigating the crime, only to come to the conclusion that Jussie Smollett had in fact orchestrated the attack on himself with two friends who are also brothers, known as the Osundairo brothers. Jussie Smollett was indicted on charges of having provided a false statement to the police. And just like that, out of the blue, the charges against Jussie Smollett were dropped. The case was sealed and the file was expunged within a period of 2 weeks, give or take. And that this course of action was justified on the basis of what is known as a pretrial intervention, which is a non-criminal remedy to a first-time non-violent offender. The result being a non-judicial resolution to a first-time offense that does not result in the accused having a criminal record for the rest of his life.
A lot of people screamed corruption when the charges were dropped against Jussie Smollett. And I made 2 videos on this subject, the first of which was explaining how this could happen at the very least in law. Breaking down what the pretrial intervention program was, how it works, and what its objectives are. A lot of people rightly pointed out that apparently this was not Jussie Smollett's first-time offense in any event, and so he should not have been eligible for this program to begin with. I have no knowledge of that, but the collective knowledge of the internet is far greater than any one individual's knowledge base. I then did a follow-up video on the subject when an internal memo or email was released from the state attorney's office, effectively saying we want to find a way to let Jussie Smollett off, so can we find case law that supports letting someone off under similar circumstances? And the purpose of that video was to show that how sometimes people argue from conclusions as opposed to towards them. When people want to arrive at a certain conclusion, they're going to cherry pick the information, the details, the facts that will allow them to arrive at that conclusion. Quite clearly, the state attorney Kim Foxx wanted to arrive at the conclusion that would result in Jussie Smollett getting off basically scot-free. And they did, but people were shocked. Not only were people shocked, the Chicago Police Department was shocked. And let me tell you something, for the little I know about Chicago, you do not want to shock the Chicago Police Department.
You do not want the Chicago Police Department on your back.
So the charges were unceremoniously dropped against Jussie Smollett, blindsiding the Chicago Police Department. Apparently his court record was not only sealed but also expunged. Again, things that are not impossible in law, but things that are very convenient to have occurred to Jussie Smollett under the circumstances given the facts. And typically to benefit from this pretrial intervention program, the accused has to admit guilt and apologize. Jussie Smollett did neither of those things. Not only did he do neither of those things, after the charges were dropped, the court file sealed and expunged, Jussie Smollett took to the media to proclaim his innocence, reaffirm his story, and claim to be a victim in all of this situation. And let me tell you something, that PO'd the Chicago Police Department. And so what does the Chicago Police Department do after Jussie Smollett is let off scot-free, after the Chicago Police Department spent however many weeks, however many overtime hours pursuing this, investigating it to come to the conclusion that Jussie Smollett faked the attack on himself? They send a letter of demand to Jussie Smollett demanding reimbursement of the $130,000+ that they incurred in pursuit of this investigation, only to determine that it was in fact a fake hoax from the beginning. Pride goeth before the fall. Jussie Smollett says, no, I'm not paying you anything. I'm the victim in this. My story is true and I'm not paying you a penny. What does Chicago Police Department do? They sue for over $130,000 in overtime salary paid in the context of the investigation surrounding this entire hoax. And just to open the standard parentheses, nothing in this video constitutes legal advice. I am a Quebec attorney. I don't do criminal law. I did commercial litigation. I'm not certified to practice outside of Quebec. That said, and like I say in every video, the law is sort of like a code that lawyers are trained to read. And if I can help break things down and just explain things in simpler terms, I think that is my value added to society at this point in time. What was the other thing? That's right, if you like my content, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think. And now let's get into the lawsuit, shall we? Complaint. Plaintiff, the City of Chicago, City, by its corporate counsel Edward and Siskel, brings this complaint under the city's False Statement Ordinance of the Municipal Code of Chicago, MCC, and the city's Cost Recovery Ordinance against defendant Jussie Smollett, seeking relief against defendant for false statements he made to the city, and seeking recovery of the costs of necessary services provided by the city due to defendant's violations of the MCC, and in support alleges as follows. Skip the party sections, we know who the parties are, let's just get straight to jurisdiction because it's interesting. This court has jurisdiction over defendant. Defendant violated the MCC by making false statements in Chicago, Illinois, and the city incurred significant costs in order to provide services reasonably related to defendant's false statements. Venue in Cook County is proper because this cause of action arose in Cook County, Illinois. And without getting into a detailed course of law on the subject, there are these elements that attach a lawsuit to specific jurisdictions. And the most common are where the cause of action arose, where the defendant resides, where the damages occurred, or the parties can choose their own jurisdiction contractually if they so choose. But it is important in lawsuits to make allegations to justify the jurisdiction, at the very least to avoid confusion, because if someone takes a lawsuit in the wrong jurisdiction, or in a jurisdiction with no link to the cause of action, the defendant can seek the dismissal of the suit or the transfer to the proper jurisdiction. And you read the factual allegations, which basically just tell the story of how Jussie Smollett devised this amazing idea to fake a hate crime on himself using his two friends, and you ask yourself what people are thinking. I mean, even in the best of circumstances, it's very difficult to commit a crime and be able to get away with it. This is so ill thought out. I mean, it just boggles the mind that anyone could think that they're going to get away with it. They have to take the rest of the world for fools. I mean, in this lawsuit, the city of Chicago goes into great detail as to what they discovered in the subsequent investigation, leading to the ultimate determination that Jussie Smollett staged this attack on himself. I mean, they found text messages between Jussie Smollett and one of the Osundaro brothers to the effect that Jussie Smollett might need one of their help, but to keep it on the down low. And then they meet and they plan, and Jussie asks the other Osundaro brother if he can be trusted, and he says yes, and they decide to go through with this scheme to fake an attack on Jussie Smollett because he was not happy with the way Empire staff reacted or dealt with an alleged letter that he had gotten a few days earlier. And it's alleged that in furtherance of this scheme, Jussie Smollett gave $100 to the Osundaro brothers so they could go and get the materials necessary to perpetuate this hoax, a fake attack against Jussie Smollett. And the Chicago Police Department's investigation is thorough. They have video evidence from the taxi that dropped the Osundaro brothers off at the scene, and they have the cooperation of the Osundaro brothers, who at this point are just doing anything to get themselves out of this mess. And so they're providing documentary evidence, proof of payment, text messages, everything and anything under the sun that shows that this was an orchestrated hoax from beginning to end. This is the evidence they gathered, and the question I'm asking myself after reading all of this is, why on earth would Jussie Smollett refuse to pay the money that the Chicago Police Department demanded he reimburse to the city? And I can only come up with two plausible explanations. Either Jussie overplayed his hand, or Jussie's attorneys are either not advising him properly, or he is not listening to their advice. I cannot believe that Jussie Smollett's attorneys would be so negligent or reckless to advise him not to reimburse the monies, or to advise him to continue to proclaim his innocence, given what he knows, what they know, and what everyone knows the Chicago Police Department has. Now, maybe at the beginning, Jussie Smollett and or his attorneys were overplaying their hand because they were convinced that the file was, in fact, under seal, and the public would never become aware of the damning information that the Chicago Police Department had acquired in the context of their investigation. Maybe. But as we all know now, above and beyond the act of protest of actually suing Jussie Smollett for reimbursement of the costs incurred by the city, the Chicago Police Department went on a document dump afterwards to reveal to the public the information that they had, demonstrating with relative certainty that Jussie Smollett had staged this attack on himself. I mean, you have to take for granted that Jussie Smollett and his attorneys know the information that is in the hands of the Chicago Police Department. So at the beginning, they must have been operating on the basis that this information is not going to become public because the court file is sealed. And pride goeth before the fall. Jussie Smollett, sticking to his guns, refuses to reimburse him, and now he's being sued. And as far as I am concerned, not only has he already lost in the court of public opinion, but he's going to lose in the court of justice. Let's skip to the end of the lawsuit where they're seeking damages, because that's also kind of interesting. Paragraph 56, subsection 1-21-010A of the FSO, False Statements Ordinance. Any person who knowingly makes a false statement of material fact to the city in violation of any statute, ordinance, or regulation, or who knowingly makes a false statement of material fact to the city in connection with any application, report, affidavit, oath, or attestation, including a statement of material fact made in connection with a bid, proposal, contract, or economic disclosure statement, or affidavit, is liable to the city for a civil penalty of not less than $500 and not more than $1,000, plus up to 3 times the amount of damages which the city sustains because of the person's violation of this section. A person who violates this section shall also be liable for the city's litigation and collection costs and attorney's fees. So very interesting Interesting, the FSO provides for statutory damages for false statements, and the reason for this is quite logical. Sometimes it's going to be difficult to prove the actual damages incurred. Sometimes there will not be any actual damages incurred as a result of a false statement, but you still want to be able to penalize someone for having made a false statement, so they attribute a minimum and a maximum statutory damage per false statement made. And at least in Canada, there are similar statutory damages provided under our copyright laws, because sometimes it's very difficult to quantify the actual damages sustained as a result of copyright infringement, so the law provides for statutory damages that someone can claim, so they don't have to prove actual damages. So the FSO provides for statutory damages per false statement made. Not only that, it provides for a recovery of up to 3 times the amount of the actual damages sustained. So while the city of Chicago is suing for a little over $130,000 as actual damages incurred for the 1,836 overtime hours in order to carry out that investigation, only to find out it was as a result of false statements made by Jussie Smollett, Jussie Smollett can be on the hook for 3 times that amount plus $1,000 per false statement made to the city. I'm thinking that Jussie Smollett probably now realizes he should have paid the $130,000 that the city initially asked for, and if I'm Jussie Smollett's attorneys, I am telling Jussie to go back to the city and beg that they allow you to do that. Although at this point the damage is already done, the lawsuit is already out, the trial by public opinion, I mean, it already started a long time ago, it might be entering its final stages of drafting, so to speak. And just the final kick in the teeth. Paragraph 66. In any action brought under the CRO, the City of Chicago shall also be entitled to recover a penalty in an amount equal to the city's litigation and collection costs and attorney's fees. This is going to get expensive quickly, and it's going to make the initial demand of $130,000 look like a bargain in hindsight. Hindsight is always 20/20, and when all is said and done, Jussie Smollett is probably going to regret the fact that he did not say thank you and be quiet and walk away and go back to private life for a little bit, instead of mouthing off to and taunting the Chicago Police Department. This might have gone away, although I think the public outrage was sufficient that it would not have gone away. And now not only has the Chicago Police Department dumped a bunch of documentation, sued Jussie Smollett, a judge recently unsealed the entire court file, and part of the reason for which the judge ordered that was specifically because of Jussie Smollett's conduct after the file had been sealed. The judge opined that if Jussie Smollett had wanted this just to go away and he wanted to return to private life, he should not have been making public statements the way he was. And in so doing, his conduct specifically justified unsealing the court file because Jussie Smollett was making it public yet again. Kim Foxx, the state attorney, call it what you want, but most people are calling it corruption, has now compromised her career to pull a favor for Jussie Smollett. Regardless of whether or not the favor was justified or justifiable in law, we're dealing with what on its face looks like corruption by unequal application of the rules. Very few people without Jussie Smollett's connections would have gotten the treatment that Jussie Smollett got. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Now you know your vlog. Peace out. Boom!